Have you ever sat by the window on a quiet morning and suddenly realized time has been slipping away far more quickly than you thought? One moment, you were preparing for the new year, hanging lanterns, or shopping for groceries. And the next, you look up and the year is already coming to an end. Seasons change, children grow up, and so do we. The mirror no longer reflects the youthful face we once knew. The laughter lines are deeper now, the silver in our hair more noticeable. But perhaps what surprises us most is not what we see, but what we feel. Because deep inside, many of us still carry a sense of youth, a desire to live fully, love deeply, and wake each morning with purpose. Yet society often tells us that after a certain age, we should simply sit down and let life pass by quietly. That our best years are behind us. That we are no longer needed in the same way. But what if that isn't true? What if aging, real aging, is not something that happens in the body first, but in the heart? And what if I told you, there are people in their 70s and 80s who seem to shine brighter with every passing year? People who laugh like children, love like poets, and live with more peace and joy than ever before. Not because they stopped aging, but because they learned how to live differently. In today's video, we will walk together through 7 emotional wisdoms that help us stay young not just in body, but in spirit. These aren't empty slogans or quick fixes. They are the quiet truths that, once embraced, can change the way you live your later years. So whether you're 58 or 88, whether you feel stuck or feel free, I invite you to stay with me until the very end. Because this isn't just about how not to grow old. It's about how to grow fully with grace, with strength, and with deep, lasting joy. And if even one part of this message touches your heart, I gently invite you to subscribe to this channel, so we can continue walking together through more stories, more wisdom, and more moments of quiet reflection. Now, let us begin this journey. Let us rediscover how to live in a way that softens the aging and strengthens the soul. 1. Don't let age define you. There comes a point in life when birthdays no longer feel like celebrations, they feel like reminders. Reminders of what we used to be able to do, but now struggle with. Reminders of how our body used to move effortlessly, how our face used to shine without the shadow of fatigue. And sometimes, it becomes easy, even automatic, to reduce ourselves to a number. I'm already 70. I'm too old for that now. People my age don't do things like this anymore. But what if I told you that this kind of thinking, quiet, subtle, and socially accepted, is one of the deepest roots of emotional aging? You see, age is not a definition. It's a direction. It tells you how long you've been here, not what you're still capable of becoming. In my years working with older adults across the US, in small towns of Ohio, in city centers like San Francisco, in quiet assisted living homes and vibrant community halls, I've seen one truth come up again and again. Those who stop living because they've started aging, age faster. While those who keep showing up for life, with curiosity and courage, even if their steps are slower, seem to radiate a youthfulness that has nothing to do with smooth skin or strong legs. Let me tell you about Eleanor, one of the most unforgettable women I've ever met. She was 84 when I met her, living alone after her husband passed away. Most of her friends had either moved or passed on. Her knees ached, her back stiffened in the cold, and her vision had begun to blur. But none of these things defined her. You see, Eleanor had made a decision, one that changed everything. She no longer referred to herself by her age. She stopped saying, "I'm old," and started asking, "What do I still want to experience?" Every Tuesday, she went to the public library and read books about architecture, something she had loved as a child but never pursued. Every Friday, she took a pottery class with students in their 20s, who quickly came to admire her patience and grace. And every Sunday, she volunteered at the botanical gardens, teaching schoolchildren the names of flowers, names she'd learned from her mother during the Great Depression. One day, I asked her, "Eleanor, don't you ever feel lonely?" She smiled, leaned forward, and said, "Lonely? No. Curious? Always." That was her secret. She didn't let age dictate her identity. She honored her body's changes, yes, but she refused to let a number erase her spirit. And science supports this too. According to the Journal of Aging and Health, seniors who hold positive self-perceptions of aging live an average of 7.5 years longer than those with negative perceptions. That's more than any medication has ever promised. Why? Because how we view ourselves influences how we treat ourselves. If you believe you're too old to matter, you may stop taking care of your body, stop learning, stop connecting. But if you believe that life still wants something beautiful from you, you will keep showing up for it. And here's something else I've learned. Many people don't grow old because of their age. They grow old the moment they stop dreaming. When you stop planning something new. When you stop reaching out to people who make your heart feel warm. When you stop believing that this moment, right now, is still sacred. That's when aging becomes heavy. But it doesn't have to be that way. Your grey hair doesn't mean you're finished. Your slower steps don't mean you're invisible. Your birthdays are not countdowns, they're milestones of wisdom collected. And your life right now is still a canvas. So if you've found yourself looking in the mirror lately and seeing only what's no longer there, try this instead. Look again, and ask yourself gently, what is still growing in me? What part of me hasn't given up yet? What am I still curious about? Because that's where youth hides, not in your skin, but in your questions. So today, I invite you to release the habit of letting age define you. You are not your wrinkles. You are not your diagnosis. You are not the years behind you. You are still here, still breathing, still becoming. And that is more than enough. 2. Let go of the past, live in the now. There's a kind of heaviness that doesn't show up in medical scans. It lives in the heart. It's the weight of memories we never fully released. The things we wish had turned out differently. The people who left without closure. The choices we regret. The moments we relive too often. And the silent belief, buried deep down, that maybe our best years are already behind us. I've sat across from countless older adults who've told me, back then, things were better, or in my day, people had more respect. Sometimes, it's said with pride. Other times, with pain. But almost always, it's a sign of a heart still anchored to another time. It's natural to remember. In fact, memory is one of the greatest gifts of growing older. But when we cling to the past as if it's the only place worth living, we unintentionally rob ourselves of the present. Let me share a story with you, one that stayed with me for years. In a small town outside of Chicago, I once met a man named Harold. He was 76, a retired mechanic, widowed for over a decade. Every Saturday, he would sit at the same cafe table, alone, reading the same old local newspaper from the 1980s that he kept folded in his coat pocket. He wasn't reading for news, he was reading for memory. One day, I asked him gently, "Why this paper?" He looked up, his eyes moist, and said, "This was the day my wife and I opened our first savings account. We felt rich even though we only had $100. She circled our names in the classifieds. I guess. I just like to remember that day. And I understood. Love like that doesn't fade. But I also saw the sadness behind his smile, the way his life had quietly paused, decades ago, even though the world kept spinning. You see, the past is a beautiful place to visit but a painful place to live. It's where your old joys reside, yes, but also your old pain. And if you spend too much time there, you forget how to hold what's happening now. There are grandmothers who keep telling the same story to their grandchildren, not realizing those children are yearning to make memories of their own. There are grandfathers who measure every new experience against the way things used to be, and miss out on the wonder of how things are becoming. But here's the truth. The past will never come back, not in the same way. And that's not something to mourn. That's something to honor. Because what you lived, what you lost, what you loved has shaped you. It has prepared you for now. This moment. This breath. This chance to love differently, to speak more gently, to live more freely. And modern science agrees. Neuroscientists now speak of neuroplasticity, the brain's remarkable ability to grow, change, and adapt at any age. But that change only happens in the present. Your brain can't grow in memory. It can only grow in attention. So if you want to feel alive again, come back to now. To this morning's light. To this cup of tea. To the voice of your grandchild, even if it's on a video call instead of in person. Start noticing. The taste of your breakfast. The rustle of leaves. The warmth in your chest when someone says your name kindly. That is where life is. Not in a faded photo album. Not in the days when your body felt stronger. But here. Now. In this very second. If the past still holds you, if certain memories still make you ache, allow them to pass through you like weather. You don't need to pretend they never mattered. You just need to stop building your home in them. Because no matter how painful your past was, it does not own your present. And no matter how sweet it was, it does not limit your future. You still have time. Not forever. But enough. Enough to forgive. Enough to begin again. enough to smile without pretending. So I invite you today, gently to begin letting go. Not by force, not with shame, but with love. You can say to your past, "Thank you for everything you taught me. I carry the lessons, but I no longer need to carry the weight." And then, you breathe. You look out the window. And you begin, softly, to live again. 3. Stop measuring life by what you've lost. We spend so much of our later years counting the people we've lost, counting the health we once had, counting the dreams that never came true, counting the things that used to bring us joy, now gone or far away. It's quiet at first, almost unnoticed. But over time, this habit of measuring life by what has slipped through our fingers becomes like a shadow that follows us everywhere. You might recognize the signs. You enter a room and remember who used to sit there. You hear a song and your heart tightens instead of opening. You see your reflection and compare it to a version of yourself that no longer exists. And slowly, without meaning to, you begin to believe that life is shrinking. But I want to pause here and gently say, life has not shrunk. Only your measure of it has. When we focus only on what we've lost, we forget to see what remains. And worse, we blind ourselves to what is still possible. Let me share with you a true story that moved me deeply. In a small town in Pennsylvania, I once visited a retired schoolteacher named Marie. She had taught for over 40 years, raised 3 children, buried her husband too soon, and recently had lost vision in one eye due to complications from diabetes. When I arrived, I expected to meet a woman weighed down by grief and change. Instead, I met someone who greeted me with a smile so full of light, I found myself standing taller in her presence. I asked her how she managed to stay so joyful despite everything she had lost. She said, "For a long time, I cried every morning. I counted everything that was missing. My husband, my strength, my students, even my eyesight." She paused, then smiled. But one morning, I woke up, and I could still smell my coffee. I could still hear the birds. I could still feel the softness of the blanket my daughter gave me. And I thought, if I keep counting only what's gone, I'll never see what's left. From that day on, Marie kept a journal not of her losses, but of her small, quiet joys. The way her granddaughter's voice cracked when she told a joke. The warmth of the sun on her left cheek. The fresh tomatoes a neighbor left by her doorstep. She chose to measure life not by what had ended but by what continued to bloom. And the science behind her story is powerful. Researchers at Yale University found that older adults who practice gratitude-based reframing, actively choosing to focus on what is still meaningful, experience lower levels of depression, improved immune response, and even stronger cardiovascular health. Why? Because your heart and your mind are listening to how you speak to yourself. If you say, "My life is over," your body slows down. If you say, "I have nothing left," your spirit dims. But if you say, "I still have something beautiful in front of me," your body awakens. Your eyes soften. Your future opens. And here's what I want you to know, from one human heart to another. You may have lost people you loved deeply. You may have watched dreams fade into the distance. You may carry memories so heavy they ache in your bones. But you are not made of loss. You are made of presence. You are made of now. And now is still full of life. You are not here to just survive what you've been through. You are here to discover what is still worth living for. And maybe it's not big. Maybe it's just sitting quietly with a warm drink. Maybe it's holding the hand of someone who doesn't rush you. Maybe it's listening to the same birds sing, every morning, like clockwork. But those little things? They are life. And the more you allow yourself to notice them, the more you'll begin to feel whole again, not because nothing is missing, but because you've stopped defining yourself by what's missing. So today, I gently invite you to lay down the list. The list of what I no longer have. The list of what I'll never get back. The list of what I should have done. And instead, open a new one. One that says, "Here's what still brings me peace. Here's what still feels beautiful. Here's what I choose to cherish right now." Because this is not the end of your story. This is a new chapter, one only you can write. And you deserve to write it with tenderness, not tally marks. 4. Give your children the freedom to grow. There's a quiet heartbreak that many parents carry but rarely speak of. It's not about money. It's not about health. It's about watching your children drift away. Not because they no longer love you, but because they are becoming someone you didn't quite expect. Someone with different habits, different values, different ways of loving, living, and choosing. As parents, we spend decades shaping their lives. We held their hands through first steps, soothed them through fevered nights, taught them how to tie their shoes, ride a bike, and write their names. But no one tells us how to let go. No one tells us that real love sometimes looks like stepping back, especially when it hurts. Let me share with you the story of Mrs. Clara, a woman I once worked with in a small community counseling program in Arizona. She was 72 and lived with her son, daughter-in-law, and 2 grandchildren. From the outside, it looked like a perfect multi-generational home. But Clara cried almost every evening, not from loneliness, but from exhaustion. You see, Clara did everything. She cooked 3 meals a day. She bathed her grandson. She cleaned the house, ironed the shirts, and helped with homework. And still, she felt unappreciated. Still, she felt in the way. Still, she felt like her presence was more expected than honored. One day, she said something I'll never forget. I wanted to help them. But somewhere along the line, I stopped living for myself. And that's when it struck me. Clara wasn't just giving her time. She was giving her identity. And in doing so, she lost the freedom to enjoy her own age. If this sounds familiar, I want to say this to you gently. You are not selfish for needing space. You are not ungrateful for wanting rest. And you are not less loving for stepping aside to let your children live their own journey. Because here's the truth no one says out loud. Children grow better when they are trusted to stumble. And parents age better when they are allowed to stop rescuing. When we refuse to let our children fall, we quietly send the message that they are incapable. When we interfere in their marriages, parenting, or careers, even from a place of love, we risk replacing connection with control. And when we sacrifice every breath of energy to make sure they're comfortable, we often end up bitter when they forget to say thank you. But love isn't sacrifice. Not always. Sometimes, love is space. Sometimes, love is not answering the phone every time they call in crisis. Sometimes, love is saying, I believe in you enough to let you figure this out. And sometimes, love is remembering. You were not born to raise children for the rest of your life. You were born to live fully even after they've grown. Modern psychology tells us this too. Studies in family systems therapy show that over-involved parenting in later life leads to increased stress in both parents and adult children. It creates dependency, erodes self-esteem, and blurs emotional boundaries. But when parents allow space when they become companions instead of caretakers, relationships strengthen. Resentment softens. Mutual respect grows. It doesn't mean abandoning them. It means trusting them. It means becoming a witness, not a manager. And that takes great wisdom. So if you've been carrying the quiet burden of doing too much for too long, I invite you to gently begin releasing it. Let your grown children make mistakes. Let them forget to call without assuming they've forgotten you. Let them raise their children their way even if it's different from how you would. And then turn your gaze back toward your own life. Ask yourself, what brings me joy outside of being a parent? What nourishes me beyond caring for others? What dreams have I postponed for the sake of family? Because here's what I've seen, time and time again. When a parent begins to reclaim their own joy, the whole family breathes easier. And love flows, not from obligation but from freedom. So give your children the greatest gift you can. Not more control, but more trust. Not more presence, but more peace. And give yourself the permission to live, not just as mom or dad, but as you are whole, beautiful, becoming soul, still worthy of rest, of adventure, of being cherished. 5. Release the pain you've carried too long. There's a kind of pain that doesn't cry out loud. It doesn't show in broken bones or bandaged skin. It doesn't come with fevers or prescriptions. But it lingers, quietly, like a bruise on the soul. This pain lives in memory. It's the bitter word from a loved one that was never taken back. The betrayal that never received an apology. The loss that came too soon, too suddenly, with too little warning. Or the guilt we carry for what we did or didn't do when we had the chance. Many people believe that time will heal it. That, given enough days and seasons and distractions, the ache will dissolve on its own. But the truth is time doesn't heal what the heart refuses to release. I've met men in their 70s still haunted by something their father said when they were 10. I've sat with women in their 80s who still weep for a child they lost 50 years ago. I've listened to elders who smile in public but cry in silence over friendships broken, siblings estranged, or wounds never witnessed. And do you know what hurts even more? It's not just the pain itself. It's the belief that we have no right to feel it anymore. That we are too old to still be hurt. That we should have moved on by now. But healing doesn't follow a schedule. It's not ruled by the calendar. It waits for one thing, and one thing only: permission. Permission to grieve. Permission to speak what was once unspeakable. Permission to admit, yes, that did hurt. And no, I haven't fully let it go. Let me share a story. In a reflective circle for seniors in Portland, Oregon, I once met a man named Frank. He was 79, a retired firefighter, with hands like bark and eyes like storms. Quiet for most of the session until one day, he shared a memory. I held a man in my arms once. Couldn't save him. Thought I could. Told his wife he didn't suffer. But I lied. It's been 46 years. I still see his face. There was silence. Not because no one knew what to say, but because we all understood. Frank had carried that moment for nearly half a century. And in 5 decades, no one had told him, you don't have to hold it anymore. So we Saturday. No advice. No fixing. Just listening. And when he looked up, his eyes softer than I'd seen them before, he whispered, thank you for letting me set it down. That's the power of release. Not forgetting. Not pretending it never happened. But setting it down, like a heavy pack you've been carrying too far, too long. And neuroscience backs this up. Trauma studies now show that emotional pain activates the same regions of the brain as physical pain. Which means your heartbreak isn't in your head. It's in your biology. But the beautiful part? The brain also responds to narrative healing, the act of naming, witnessing, and releasing stored pain. And it's never too late. Your story is still listening. Your nervous system is still softening. Your breath, yes, this one is still an invitation to let go. So how do we begin? Sometimes it starts with a letter you'll never send. Sometimes it's finally saying aloud, I deserved better. Sometimes it's holding your own hands and saying, I forgive myself. And sometimes it's telling your pain, thank you for protecting me, but I don't need you anymore. What you've survived is not who you are. What hurt you doesn't get to define you forever. And what they did or failed to do doesn't deserve to take one more moment of your joy. You've given enough. You've carried enough. You've waited long enough. So let this be the season you loosen your grip on the pain that stayed too long. Let this be the chapter where you begin to exhale. Let this be the moment you say to your own heart, I'm sorry for ignoring you. I'm proud of you for surviving. And I love you enough to let you heal. Because your soul was never meant to live in shadow. It was built for peace. And peace begins where pain is finally laid down. 6. Choose presence over control. There's a part of growing older that no one prepares us for. It's not the aching knees. Not the thinning hair. Not even the occasional forgetfulness. It's the slow realization that we no longer have control over the things we once did. Our children make decisions without asking us. Our health becomes unpredictable. The world changes too fast, and we can't seem to catch up. Even our own bodies begin to feel like strangers. And in response, many of us do what humans naturally do when we feel powerless. We tighten our grip. We try to control what we can. We give too much advice to our children. We correct how others do things in the house. We get frustrated when the dinner is too late, or the TV is too loud, or the grandchildren are too wild. Not because we are difficult, but because, deep down, we are grieving something we don't know how to name. The loss of certainty. The loss of being in charge. And I want to say this with great compassion. It's okay to miss being needed. It's okay to miss being the one who knew how to fix things. It's okay to miss being in control. But trying to reclaim control in the wrong places often drives away the very peace we are longing for. Let me tell you about Lorraine, a woman I met during a community wellness retreat in Florida. She was 81, living with her daughter and son-in-law after a mild stroke. The arrangement made sense. She needed some help, and they wanted her close. But she wasn't happy. And neither were they. Lorraine would rearrange the kitchen cabinets every week. She would correct how her daughter spoke to the grandchildren. She would criticize what they wore, how they cooked, how late they stayed up. When I asked her why, she sighed and said, "If I don't keep some order, I feel like I'm disappearing." And there it was. Not control, but fear. The fear of fading. The fear of becoming invisible. The fear of no longer mattering. And this is where the shift begins. Control is a response to fear. Presence is a response to love. You see, when we stop trying to fix, advise, and manage everything, we make space for something even more powerful. Connection. When Lorraine began focusing less on keeping order and more on simply being there reading with her grandkids, sharing stories instead of rules, listening without correcting, everything changed. She told me, "I finally felt like they saw me again. Not as a critic, but as a grandmother, as a mother, as a woman with stories to tell." And neuroscience supports this too. According to research in geriatric psychology, older adults who shift from control-based behavior to mindfulness-based presence experience lower stress, stronger family bonds, and even improved immune response. Because presence invites closeness. Presence creates safety. Presence tells your loved ones, "I'm not here to correct you, I'm here to experience this moment with you." So how do we begin? Start with the breath. Next time you feel the urge to interrupt or adjust or advise, pause. Take a slow, deep breath. Ask yourself, is this about helping? Or is this about holding on? Then gently choose presence. Instead of fixing the way your granddaughter dresses, ask her why she chose that outfit. Instead of rearranging the cupboard again, sit with a cup of tea and ask your daughter about her day. Instead of correcting your son's parenting, tell him what a good father he's become. Because being heard, being seen, being trusted, those things last longer than control ever could. And here's the beautiful truth. Your presence is enough. Your attention is a gift. Your calm spirit is the legacy your family will remember most. Not the house rules. Not the strict routines. Not the times you had the final word. But the way you made them feel when you chose love over authority. When you chose listening over correcting. When you chose to be with them, not above them. So today, if life feels like it's slipping from your hands, I invite you to open your hands instead. Let go of the need to hold everything in place. And let something softer, quieter, and more beautiful enter. Presence. Because that's where the real power is. Not in having control, but in giving love. Not in managing outcomes, but in sharing moments. And you just as you are, right now, are still needed. Not to run the show, but to hold the heart of it. 7. Open your heart to peace, not perfection. There's a quiet kind of suffering that hides behind smiles and small talk. It's not the pain of the body, though that's real, too. It's not the ache of loss, though we've all felt that. It's something softer, something harder to name. It's the feeling that, no matter how much we've done, how much we've given, how long we've lived, we still weren't enough. Not a good enough parent. Not a patient enough spouse. Not wise enough. Not kind enough. Not strong enough. Not perfect. This silent burden follows many people into old age. It whispers through the cracks of our quiet moments. And if we are not careful, it begins to write our story for us. But here's what I want to say to you, gently, as someone who's walked alongside many lives in their later chapters. Perfection was never the point. Peace is. Because perfection is a chase that never ends. But peace? Peace begins exactly where you are when you stop running. Let me share a story with you. Her name was Jean. She was 87 when I met her. A former nurse, a mother of 4, and by all accounts, a woman who had done everything right. But she couldn't rest. She couldn't sleep. She couldn't smile without guilt. Why? Because her youngest son had stopped speaking to her years ago after a family argument. Because she had said something in anger that she couldn't take back. Because she hadn't been able to fix it. "I don't deserve peace," she told me, tears in her eyes. "I failed him. And I can't undo that." I sat with her in silence, then gently asked, "If he had forgiven you, would you have forgiven yourself?" She shook her head. "No. I don't think I know how." And that, dear friend, is what so many of us struggle with. We wait for the world to give us permission to stop punishing ourselves. We wait for everyone to be okay before we allow ourselves to be okay. We think peace has to be earned like a trophy handed out at the end of a perfect life. But peace is not a reward. It is a return to who you are when you stop pretending. And forgiveness? Forgiveness is not always about hearing "I'm sorry" from someone else. Sometimes, it's standing in front of a mirror and whispering, "I did the best I could, with what I knew at the time. And I forgive myself for not knowing more." That is not weakness. That is wisdom. Modern psychology has a name for this: self-compassion. And research shows that older adults who practice self-compassion, who speak to themselves with gentleness instead of judgment, experience lower levels of depression, anxiety, and loneliness. Because the truth is, you were never meant to be perfect. You were meant to be present. You were meant to stumble, to learn, to love imperfectly. You were meant to hurt and heal, to lose and still love again. You were meant to cry and keep going. You were meant to grow softer, not harder. So if you've been carrying the belief that you should have done more, if your heart is still chasing approval or clinging to regret, if you look back on your life and only see what's missing, let me remind you of something simple and sacred. You showed up. You raised your voice when you could. You stayed up late when they were sick. You apologized when you learned how. You laughed even when your heart was tired. You carried more than you ever thought you could. That's not failure. That's life. Messy, tender, human, and still worthy of rest. So today, I invite you to open your heart, not to the impossible standard of perfection, but to the quiet promise of peace. Peace with your story. Peace with your limits. Peace with the life you've lived and the life that still wants to be lived in you. You are not too broken. You are not too late. You are not disqualified. You are still worthy of joy. You are still capable of tenderness. And you are still right now becoming. So lay down the mirror that only shows your flaws. Lay down the yardstick that never measured your worth. Lay down the mask of "I'm fine." And just be here. With breath. With memory. With grace. You don't need to be perfect to be loved. You don't need to have it all together to belong. And you don't need anyone's permission to begin again. If you've stayed with me through all 7 emotional messages, I want to say something very simple, but deeply meant. Thank you. Not just for watching. Not just for listening. But for allowing yourself to feel. To reflect. To breathe a little more softly. And to remember that your life this very moment is still sacred. Because the truth is, most people rush through their later years trying to fix what's already behind them. Or fear what's still ahead. But you chose something different today. You chose to pause. You chose to honor what's quiet. You chose to sit with truths that often go unspoken. And in doing so, you've taken the first step toward something many never find. A life that is not measured by time, but by tenderness. Let's walk back through these 7 messages, not as lessons, but as gentle invitations. You don't have to let age define you. You don't have to live in the past. You don't need to count what you've lost to know what you still hold. You can let your children go, and still hold them close in love. You can set down pain that has been with you for too long. You can trade control for presence and find more joy in return. And most of all, you can stop chasing perfection and open your arms to peace. These are not small things. They are the kind of choices that shape how your days feel, how your nights rest, and how your legacy lives on. Because at the end of it all, we are not remembered for how tightly we held everything together. We are remembered for how deeply we loved, how kindly we spoke, and how freely we allowed ourselves to live. So today, I invite you gently to carry one small message with you. You are still becoming, still unfolding, still capable of joy. And if something in this video touched your heart, even just one sentence, I'd love to know which part stayed with you. Please take a moment to leave a comment below. Let me know what resonated. Let's build a space here where wisdom is shared, not hoarded. Where every experience yours, mine, ours is honored as part of a life well lived. And if you'd like to continue walking this journey together, please subscribe to this channel. Not just to receive more content, but to be part of a community that believes aging is not the end of anything, but the flowering of everything that matters. There are more stories to tell, more truths to uncover, more moments of quiet transformation waiting for you. So stay with us. Follow along. And whenever you're ready, press play again. Because you deserve to grow old with grace, not fear. With wisdom, not weight. With laughter, not silence. Thank you for sharing this time with me. And until next time, may your day be gentle, your heart be light, and your journey forward filled with peace.